chasing the rabbit so you don't have to. Here they are, Mark and Don, the two crazy guys.
Hey, and welcome to another broadcast episode of The Two Crazy Guys, broadcasting from undisclosed locations here in Southeast Arizona. My name is Donald Lowry, a.k.a. Big D, and on the other side I have my buddy and cohort and partner in crime, the other crazy guy. His name is Mark Boyle, a.k.a. The Prepper Guy. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing really good today. I mean, been watching the news and getting frustrated, but all in all, it's been pretty good. I mean, it's hard not to get discouraged.
But if you're not upset, it's because you're not paying attention to what's going on.
Yes. I mean, that is so true, because you look around and, you know, we've talked about this numerous times. You got the Green Deal or the Green New Deal or whatever they're calling it.
Yeah.
I noticed today that there's 16 states now that are trying to push for popular vote. So they're gonna make it to where, depending on popular vote, then the electoral votes go to that. And it's just,
we've got to be very careful with that. That's, you know, that whole thing. Look, our entire genius in our Republican form of government is the Electoral College. Period. Yeah. And if we go to that popular vote, we might as well hang it up. We'll never see another candidate other than what those who live in California and New York want to see based on population alone.
Right. And you know, at first blush, everybody thinks, well, we're a democracy and one man, one vote or whatever. Yeah, no. And it could sound kind of good if you were, you know, really not paying attention.
Yeah.
But when you think about the beauty of the Electoral College, which most people have never done, is actually study it, you see how well it works, and it's like, it's better than popular vote.
Yeah.
But you know, it's hard to educate the masses when our voice and John's voice and everybody, even, you know, all the way up to Levin and these bigger, you know, radio shows, we're still only a few parts per million.
Yeah.
So it's too hard to figure it out. But I was reading that this morning thinking, we are in such bad shape as a nation.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's almost discouraging in a point to where you just want to throw up your hands and walk away.
You know, Mark, that you are spot on. Look, first of all, you said it looks good on paper. Well, the Green New Deal looks good on paper. But if you were to try to put that and implement it into plan, it's not sustainable. None of it is. But no. You are saying the exact same things that I in my heart felt a few years ago, you know, when I was originally doing the Conservative Underground podcast. I was actually in the mindset that I was the lone wolf. I was the only one that thought the way I did. You know, right. I thought that we were doomed. I thought that we were losing the republic. And, you know, then I met some other friends here locally and, you know, started getting involved politically. And I started to see that indeed I was wrong. And then, of course, Trump got elected. And I see, you know, you see the people that support him. And it makes me have a resounding glee that the republic is not lost, but we are well on our way to losing it if we don't, you know, John Jeffers of the Jeffers Brief, and he's, by the way, welcome to all the listeners on KYAH 540 AM and all the other areas where you're going to be listening to this in iTunes and Google Play and Stitcher Radio and all those other places. Welcome to all the listeners, because without you, we have no show. But, you know, and also we want to remind you to log on to www.getthet.com and go check them out as well. But, you know, the whole thing is, it's scary because we are on a path to losing the republic, because every day America is bombarded with the democracy. This isn't how our democracy works, and we need to work on resaving the democracy. You know, it's part of dumbing down America. If you tell somebody something enough, they begin to believe it.
They start thinking it's true. Yeah. And you know, I was talking to one of the folks, I guess I'll leave his name out a little bit, but, you know, from the Patriot Alliance. And, you know, he was saying, well, you know, I don't remember 9/11. He was younger then. And you're thinking, you know, they don't have a history to look back on. And so when you start jumping into socialism, you really got to go back, you know, even before you and I were born almost, when, you know, World War I and II. And so it's easy to, I guess, pull the wool over people's eyes when they don't have a historic reference. And they're not, you know, they're not going to get the facts from the media.
No.
So when AOC or somebody, you know, Bernie Sanders comes along and says, man, this socialism is going to be great.
Yeah.
They can't really, you know, do the thinking about it and go, well, I don't know, you know, history shows us that it never worked, because they don't have that top of mind awareness of just how bad it was. Just like 9/11, we've all forgotten 9/11 other than a date,
Much.
you know, of what happened. And I was right there watching it on the news live as it happened. So it's in my mind, you know, of what that was that day. But younger, you know, people, they can't feel those gut emotions that, you know, when it's talked about, you know, a 9/11, they just go, oh yeah, my parents talked about it, but they don't have that visceral reaction to go, no, this is just messed up.
Right.
And it's the same with socialism, you know, democracy, popular vote. They just have no frame of reference, I guess, is the short way of saying it.
Well, you know, we are moving into an election cycle, and we have the 2020 election coming up. And, you know, none of the candidates on the Democratic side are hiding the fact that they're socialists. In fact, you know, at one time, they would try to hide it, and they would try to act like, you know, like you were saying the last time, Barack Obama sounded so much like a conservative, you know, and then they always run to the other side. Well, they're not even trying to hide the fact that they're socialists now.
No, they come out and, you know, like Bernie Sanders just says it. Well, they call it democratic socialist, which I guess is really not an oxymoron, because, you know, a democracy is, you know, a really big step towards socialism.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same thing.
And identity politics and all that. It's creating a push for mob rule. So, you know, but they say it. You know, Bernie Sanders, I'm a democratic socialist. Like, oh, that just sounds so warm and fuzzy, Grandpa.
Yeah.
But what does that mean? It means the death of America.
You tell them, well, socialism has never worked anywhere that it's ever been tried. And their answer is, well, that's because they didn't know how to do it. We know how to do it, so it's going to work for us.
Yeah, like Karl Marx didn't know what he was doing when he figured it all out in the first place.
Exactly.
He didn't know what he was doing, and he invented it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay.
But they seem to think that they know how to do it. And then you start looking, I mean, you start looking at this Green New Deal, and you're like, man, this is just absolutely ludicrous.
Well, and I agree with you, even though the first time you talked to me about it, I thought it'll never happen. But I never thought that you would have politicians that have sworn an oath to a constitution to start talking about undermining the biggest cornerstone of our freedom and liberty, which is, you know, the Electoral College and the way we elect a president.
Yeah.
And so I never thought I'd see that day either. And here it is right around the corner.
Well, you know, here's the thing. People tell me, and I've you know, discussed this, and they say, well, you know, they'll never get it through. They can never get it through. It'll never happen. But listen, it's really not that hard.
No.
Here's all they have to do. All they have to do is they have to get one of these candidates elected. Every one of them support the Green New Deal. They've all come out and said that they support it. So that's all they have to do is get one of them elected. And then all they have to do is start rigging the elections, just like they always do, and taking up more seats in the House and more seats in the Senate until they have both the House, the Senate, and the president. And guess what? They run into the bill in the House. It passes the House. It passes the Senate, and it's signed into law.
Right. And if you look at these 16 states that are literally talking about, throwing their electoral votes to the popular vote.
Right.
It doesn't take an act of Congress to make that happen. That's kind of has always been up to the states to,
Right.
figure out the rules of who's the electors and everything. So it doesn't even take a big push.
Nope.
You've already got 18 states saying we're going to do this, and I guess they have every right to do it.
Now, the other thing is, the other argument that I've come across is, well, they need to ratify it and they need, 2/3 and all this, that, and the other. They're talking about the Constitution. They're talking about ratifying a change to our Constitution.
Right.
What I'm talking about and what they're talking about is flushing the Constitution down the toilet and implementing the Green New Deal as the new law. There's a
Right.
difference there. If you want to change our United States Constitution, then yes, you need 2/3 of the vote. But we're not talking about changing our Constitution.
No.
We're talking about replacing the Constitution
Yeah.
with a new Bill of Rights and a new law.
Right. So it basically, why would you get 2/3 of the states to agree with it when you're going to do away with that silly old document anyway?
Exactly. That's my point.
And so they're kind of circumventing the checks and balances with these
Yep.
things. And we're all way too busy to keep up on all this stuff anymore.
Yeah, nobody's paying attention and nobody cares.
No, I mean, I would say that if you really had a chat with most people, Democrats and Republicans, they would go, well, we don't want that.
Right.
But you're not having that debate, as they call it. We're just getting brainwashed from the media
Yep.
of how all this stuff's supposed to happen. And so it scares me on a different level to where, I'll be 65 this summer, and I'm thinking I might see this collapse as far as, what's going on in Venezuela and stuff
Yeah.
in my lifetime, and there ain't much of it left. And it pisses me off kind of, because if there's going to be a revolution, I'd kind of like to be, healthy enough to run or fight or hold up my rifle, so,
Yeah. I hear you, man.
but I'm seeing it, and I was wondering, and maybe here after break, it's like I was gonna bring it up in the Patriot Alliance. How do you fix this? I mean, we can all talk until we're blue in the face, but
Yeah.
how is there a way to actually create a plan and make it happen?
Yes,
Because otherwise it's just talk.
there is a way to do it. But it's
Yeah.
going to take cooperation and it's going to take work. And you can't sit in your chair and be an armchair quarterback. Like John Jeffers, was it John that said, or was it you? Maybe it was you that said, well, I think it was you. Are you willing to fight?
Yeah.
We're all willing to fight, but how far are you willing to go to fight?
Right. And what will be your position? That was my thing with not will you stand, but where will you stand?
Exactly.
Because I've talked to really good patriots that have no clue sometimes, and they're good intentions and all that, but they look at it differently. And so the hill they're going to die on is completely diametrically opposed to the hill I'm planning on dying on.
Yeah, exactly.
So you get this fractured mess. Why don't we take a break, and then we'll come back and see if we can solve all the world's problems in the next 45 minutes.
All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back.
All righty.
Let's talk about tea. Not just any tea, getthetea.com. They have all kinds of cool stuff. They have cleansing teas, they have stuff for eye health, stuff from the sea, immune support, stamina and energy, food and protein, and just all kinds of cool stuff. Log on to the website at www.getthetea.com. Log on now.
We interrupt your programming. This is a national emergency. Important instructions will follow.